Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. We are going to talk to you today about how to choose a major within the engineering department. I'm just pulling up a slide here so that you have something fun to look at. There you go. My name is Lynn Larson. I'm Director of Student Recruitment here in the College of Engineering at UT Arlington. We're super happy that you have joined us today in our ongoing discussions of Ask an Ambassador. And I have two fabulous UTA engineering ambassadors joining me today. I'll have another one joining in a little bit as soon as class is over, because we all know how important it is to go to class. So Yuan, would you like to start and introduce yourself first?
I'm just waiting for the live option to go on. Hello everybody, my name is Yuan. I am a civil engineering major and I am currently in my senior year. My bad.
Awesome. And Miss Ishrat.
Hi guys, my name is Ishrat and I am currently a master's student in the biomedical engineering department. And I also got my undergrad in electrical engineering from UTA.
Great. Sorry. So you've both been around UTA for a while now, which is fabulous. I'm going to be very sad when you graduate, Ishrat in December and Yuan in May. But it's really been fun having you around and especially helping me with these Ask an Ambassador chats. So today we're going to talk about how to choose a major. So first of all, let's get to the big question. Yuan, how did you choose your major? Was it passion? Was it reality? Was it job market? Like, what drove you to do civil?
For me, I think is a bit of all, more like passion and the job market. First of all, I started to think about doing civil engineering way back when I was in like middle school, when I learned that about how important civil infrastructure can be to just about everyone in society, no matter if you're a student, a parent, a kid, a person in the workforce. You always need a civil infrastructure. You always need that highway, that bridge, that railroad system, airports, drainage systems, as well as pipelines and the electrical grid, everything. You just need civil infrastructure in your life at like every day. And I just realized that if I can go into the civil engineering industry, the work I do can be beneficial to many people, and that think of that really makes me want to do civil engineering. And especially I wanted to do water resource engineering by working on the drainage systems for different cities. That's what I wanted to do, and I've been kind of having that thought ever since middle school, and that's really what drove me into picking civil engineering. And besides that, I also really liked aerospace engineering. That was my second intended major because I just really like planes in general. Like that's it, just pure passion. I just like planes. But also another part of reason why I picked civil engineering is because since civil infrastructure is such a crucial part to everybody's lives, I could basically find a job pretty much anywhere that fits with civil engineering. And because up till this day, I still don't know whether I wanted to, stay here in the States after I graduate, or do I want to go somewhere else and work there. So I figure civil engineering is just a pretty all-rounded, pretty diverse degree that can help me go into all places.
So there's so many different areas of civil engineering, and you mentioned like water resource. Why particularly water resource engineering?
Particularly water resource engineering because of, well, first of all, I grew up in a city. I grew up in a coastal city, which is Qingdao, China. And in our city, whenever it gets to rainy season, which is around summer, almost the streets will always get a little flood going on after a storm. And that's when, well, since I was a kid, I asked my dad, so like, how do we get rid of all this water? He told me that, well, there's drainage systems for these problems. And that's how I learned about drainage systems, how, if there's a storm, if you have a good drainage, then all the water will go away before they affect everybody else. And that's where it made me realize that, okay, go and dig a little bit of research, knew that, okay, I have to be a water resource engineer to work on this kind of stuff. And then, well, when I got to college, I took a class called Water Resource Engineering. I learned that there's just way more beyond just drainage system water resource engineers can do. They can do something as little as drainage system, something greater than that too. But right now I am also looking into transportation or structural engineering. In fact, I just applied for my fast track program here at UTA about 2 weeks ago, and I applied for the structural engineering part of the fast track program.
Nice, that's great. So I totally understand the water resource thing. So I was in Cairo, Egypt last October, and it normally rains 2 inches a year in Cairo. And we had a rainstorm where it rained 4 inches and closed down because they didn't have drainage or any way to get the water off of the street. So in any low-lying areas, so much water came so quickly, it just like flooded like over the tops of cars. It was like just so shocking to be there during such an event. And I kept thinking, yeah, we need some civil engineers in here to change some of the infrastructure. So totally understand that. So thank you for sharing your story. Ishrat, how did you choose your first major and then your second one that you're currently getting your master's degree in?
So I was originally a biology student, and I was pre-med, and I knew I wanted to go to med school. And I wanted something a little bit more like that would help me become like a better critical thinker and just overall increase my intelligence, I guess. And so my dad's an electrical engineer, and so he suggested that I try electrical engineering. So I went from biology to electrical engineering on my dad's advice. And he's like, yeah, it'll be easy, it'll be fine. Well, it was not easy and it was not fine, but it was definitely a challenge. It was something enjoyable. And, the one thing with electrical is that it's applicable to everything. Like electricity and technology is so much in our lives. And so that, kind of led me to stick with electrical because I considered switching to biomedical engineering. But, I started out with electrical. I liked it, and, it was tough, but it definitely taught me a lot. It definitely taught me the things that, the critical thinking skills that I needed. And I think it's overall made me like a better engineer because just, if many of y'all don't know, electrical is considered one of the hardest engineering disciplines. And there's just so much, especially with circuits, I kind of struggled, but I enjoyed it. It was like a puzzle. And once you know, like the algorithm on how to solve the puzzle, you were able to, make that connection and then find the solution. And also I was pre-med and I was thinking about, working with like, research in med school, working on like medical devices and stuff. And so I thought, this would be the perfect thing because especially with cardiac pacemakers, they're so small and they're a circuit and a battery. And so I thought, learning that would help me a lot in my future endeavors. And so that's what kind of made me stick with electrical. And then for my master's, I chose biomedical because, like I said, I want to go to med school, and it was just a little bit more, I wanted more hands-on, more hands-on experience on medical applications like cardiac pacemakers and things like that. And so that's what led me to choose that, because there are a lot of professors here, because with the biomedical, you can do like devices, or you can do like tissue engineering and things like that. My specialty for my master's is devices, and so it's definitely helped. This master's has made me see the connection between the electrical aspect of it and the biomedical aspect, and it's helped me see like both sides and how they kind of fuse together to form these medical devices and things like that. So
that's awesome. So we're in this big umbrella of engineering, and there's so many different kinds of engineering. I mean, we offer 11 different programs on our campus, and yet there's a lot of other programs that we don't offer because you can't offer everything, right? So it's also really interesting to see how sometimes the majors overlap, right? There's a lot of overlap between biomedical and electrical and computer engineering, and you've got to do some computer stuff doing civil or structural or water or things like that, right? And then if you go into mechanical or in aerospace, there's a lot of overconnect with robotics and computers and all that kind of stuff. So it's all very interconnected, right? And so, as I keep saying, to me, not being an engineer, engineers are really smart people who are super creative and great problem solvers, right? Those three things: smart, creative, problem solvers, right? So I want to go on to the next question. And Ishrat, you kind of brought this up, so I'm going to start with you this time. You mentioned how hard engineering is. So how hard is it really?
So I had a biology background. I knew nothing about engineering. I'm like, I'm really good at math, so this should be fine. And the first semester was kind of like a smack in the face. Yeah, it was a lot of math, but it was a lot of upper level math. And it was just basically, being able to understand the concepts and knowing the concepts rather than being able to do the problems. Because at the time I was in honors college as well, and so I had the ability and to take honors calculus. And so I had Professor Gornett, and I don't know if anybody has had her. She is a very, very intelligent lady. And she, the labs and stuff that we did, they were very challenging because they focused on the conceptual, the theorems and things like that, and finding the proofs behind it. And I honestly, I struggled a lot. I remember I lived out of the math clinic. I would go there after class and I would stay there until 9 when they closed. And I would get back, go home, do my homework, go back to the math clinic at 8 a.m. the next day, then stay in the math clinic, then go to my other classes and go back to the math clinic. And that's how it was for the first 2 to 3 semesters when I was getting those upper level math classes in. Initially the intro to engineering classes and the basic classes, they were very doable because the professors were very they had open office hours. There were a lot of TAs, and so the help was there. And so with the math, I think it took me a lot more time because I hadn't practiced. I didn't really want to be an engineer, so I didn't really have that math background. I only had calculus 1 with the biology degree, and so I had to do a lot of problem after problem after problem and solving it and making my mindset into a math mindset, if that makes sense. And so the first 3 semesters, but especially with the math, I kind of struggled and I had a hard time, and it was kind of discouraging. But I mean, at the end of the day, I pulled an A in all the math classes I've taken at the upper level. And so that felt very nice. And it kind of solidified hey, I can be an engineer. I can do this. And so it went hand in hand with the engineering classes. And so after I think the second year, everything just started to make sense. And I was able to see okay, well, this is the bigger picture. This is why I did all this. And, I'm kind of glad that I didn't give up at that point because it got me to this point. And so it was a rough start, but I wouldn't trade that experience for anything.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, you brought up, and I'm glad you did, is that when you realized what a challenge math was, you went to the Mat Lab, right? You went to the clinic, you got help. There are people there who are there to help guide you and help you through the process. You don't have to do it all by yourself. And I think that's a really important thing for students to understand, is that there is tutoring and there are clinics for you to go to where you can work alone with others to make sure that you're going to be a successful student. So really appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, and another thing with engineers, a lot of us are introverts and a lot of us don't like asking for help. And they're just sources of help. And sometimes, you just really need to bite the bullet and say, hey, I need help. And, it'll be better off for you in the end. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yuan, let me ask you the same question. How hard is engineering? You're muted.
Sorry, I always forget because the other days my friend told me that I sound really loud on Teams, so I try to mute myself. My bad. But engineering is hard. It's hard to the point where I think that some people when they signed up for engineering when they got into college, they didn't know how hard or like what they were signing up for. Uh, I like yeah, from talking with a lot of friends that came over from like freshman and sophomore year back then, and who later dropped it out or changed another major, it just felt like whenever before they picked engineering, they didn't know what they signed up for, and that applies to me as well. I did not know I signed up for this, because once I reached the higher level math and the higher level physics and mechanics courses, I just feel like it was really overwhelming and it got pretty hard. And especially for some of the higher mechanics courses like fluid mechanics and soil mechanics, geotechnical engineering, and water resource engineering, like these classes where I actually get to apply all the higher level math and higher level physics I learned before and applying them all together. It was just a pain. It was just very painful to do all that. And yeah, it
So
was
it's
hard.
hard. Yeah.
Yep.
And I understand that it's hard. So, you know, the two of you represent three different areas, you know, civil, electrical, and bioengineering. And yet there are 8 other engineering avenues that students can take, right? And so you've got aerospace, mechanical, construction management, software engineering, computer science, industrial engineering that includes a lot of different things, supply chain management, engineering management, industrial engineering, figuring out, you know, how do you build a factory, all those kinds of things. So it sounds like no matter what area of engineering, you know, it's going to be hard. So Yuan, I'll ask you first. Your friends who are also engineers, how many different majors at UTA are they taking? I mean, how many different types of engineers are your friends at UTA?
Well, well, let's just count from everybody else. So Jezreel, he was computer engineering, and I had Ben, who was computer science and well, software engineering. Then Reese was computer science as well, and also, oh yeah, Ben was software engineering, and then you have Kevin as mechanical engineering. Oh, by the way, these are all the ambassadors or the previous ambassadors, and then now we have Kunda, who's construction management, and Annie biomed, just like Istrat. And then we had Tiger, who was also double majoring in mechanical and aerospace. And then we used to have this other ambassador called Larry. He was a industrial engineer. And then what else are there? Because we have pretty much everybody.
Yeah, pretty much everybody's covered,
Yeah,
right? Within the big umbrella.
yeah, everybody's covered. And actually, we have a lot of CS computer science engineering majors here at UTA, and I see like electricals and industrial engineers, in addition to construction management people, the least, just because I think they're like well, construction management is a pretty new major in the college. They just got up like in the recent years, as well as architectural engineering, but electrical. It's just straight up really hard for people. Like, I know I didn't pick electrical because I didn't want to go through circuits again. To this day, I really don't want to go to circuits. Yeah, it's not my friend, and I didn't really like coding. Like, I just couldn't code. You know, like it's like I can't write a 5-page essay like in like half an hour. I just can't code into circuits. So I picked civil engineering, which is a lot of people say, and some of the civil professors say that civil is one of the easiest engineering majors out there.
Well, I'm glad, you know, that you find it easy. I just want to make sure that all of you engineers are successful, because we're going to be driving on those roads and flying those planes hopefully someday, and you know, using trains and at least watching trains go by and all that kind of stuff. So I think learning it correctly is super important. I really appreciate that. So Ishrat, let me ask you, what typically does an engineering student take as far as classes? And maybe you can talk a little bit about the intro to engineering class that kind of helps people figure out their major.
Yeah, sure. So engineering is very math heavy. for some engineering, it's not as math heavy, but like your basics, I think most of the engineers you go through Calc 2. And also a lot of the degree plans that I've seen, there's like a statistic class that you also have to take.
Mhm.
And so those are a lot of like, the foundation classes. And then as far as the intro class goes, it's just it's a mix of many different types of engineering students. And so like the name suggests, you get an intro to engineering. And so your professor will sometimes speak about their discipline and their background. They'll sometimes have guest speakers come in, and then you'll also get to do like projects and stuff. Like one of my projects was, more for like the civil engineering people who were in the class, and we were given a deck of 52 cards, and we were told to make like a house out of them. And so, so the civil engineers definitely took like, led that project. And then another project we got was to make like this little car that could go through like an obstacle course. And so the EEs took charge on that one. And so it kind of gives you like the widespread, like all the different engineerings, their applications, and kind of allows you to see like, hey, there's more to engineering beyond just like your major. And also there's a math for us, there was like a math component to it. We had like a lab in which like we would do like calculus 1 problems and stuff like that, and how it's applied to the real world.
Lynn, you're muted.
It's the first time I've done that this week, so not bad. Thank you, Tracy. So that kind of goes into like the question up here on the screen, how many credit hours do I need to complete a degree? I would say for most programs at the undergraduate level, it's 120, maybe in some aspects of engineering, 128, which is 4 years. So if you take 15 units every semester, that's 30 semesters a year, times 4 is 120. That's pretty normal. There may be some other programs that may be 132 units, but for the most part, you should be able to stay on track at about 120 to 124. So that's an easy question. I can answer that one. So we understand that you're going to take all of these different kinds of classes. Some of the classes are going to be super math heavy. Some of them may be easier than the others. So what are the tricks and tips to stay on track to finish that degree in that given 4-year amount of time? So Yuan, you want to get us started with that?
I believe stay on track, it means that stay on top of classes. I think the most crucial part in finishing your degree is stay on track of classes. That means even if the class is asynchronous or online, you're still set yourself a specific time throughout the week that make sure you watch those videos, those lecture videos, and do those homework on time. Just have enough time for you to ask your friends or the professors for help on your homework in case you don't know how to do it. And just try not to have the thought that you could just watch the videos later, because that thought is just not, it didn't go well for me last semester. Ended up having to watch like 5 lectures, 5 80 minutes lectures on this one class before the midterm, and it kind of sucked. But ever since I started this semester, all my classes are basically asynchronous, but I do set myself a specific time throughout the week just for me to watch those lectures like I was going to class, just to have like a set schedule on myself. And it's been working out pretty good. I've been keeping track of my classes, and I've been doing my work diligently and finishing before the deadlines, not like clutching at the right before at the 11:59, which is, I feel really proud of myself for doing that. And I think if you just stay on top of your classes, really just that'd be pretty much taking care of our academics. In addition, if you want to learn more things outside the classroom, it's always good to join a professional organization or just an organization that has all the engineering majors, your peers throughout your department. And usually professional organizations is a great way to start with this, because often they host competitions. Like I know for aerospace, they don't have it, but they do have clubs called aeromaths. And like, I mean, the FSAE teams for mechanical, MAE, well, pretty much for all engineering majors, but a lot of people over there are mechanical or aerospace people. And I mean, those competitions really, from what I heard from, especially from the FSAE teams and the air maps, is that they teach you a lot of stuff that you would learn in class, but they just teach it to you during your freshman year, sophomore year, whenever you join the organization, and especially whenever you need to use those skills and apply them to whether it's the rocket you're working on, the plane, or the race car you're working on. And they're saying that it actually really helped them to realize what they're learning in class, because a lot of engineering students, they will go to class, the professor would go up, explain the theorem that's behind maybe Bernoulli's energy equation, and they were like, I don't really know what's going on. And they go get to the example, they do it, and they were like, oh, this is how it works. But then there's some people who's like, I still don't know what's going on. But now when you go into work for your internship, your research, or going to one of these competition teams, and then you actually get to apply for these concepts, and you realize, oh, that's how it works. And that's really, like, I think that's the best way to get that engineering knowledge embedded into your brain. Like, that's one of the best ways, because you realize that this is useful, so you keep that memory. And in addition to joining organizations and competitions, you can also go out and try to communicate with a faculty member for undergraduate research. You can either do that on your own by emailing a professor. Since right now on COVID hours, you can go to his team's office hours, or just email him and make sure you read some of his papers right before you talk to them, so you know what you're trying to sign up for. And
yeah, I was going to bring that question up in a minute. So let's hold the rest of that thought on like research and internships. No, I mean, you know so much, and I know you just are so excited to share it with us. I just really, really appreciate that. Ishrat, do you have anything to add to tricks and tips to stay on track?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on staying on top of your classes, and also knowing your workload, because sometimes it does get heavy and you don't want to slip up in one class and, you know, make a mistake and then do poorly and have to repeat the class, because then that'll add to the time you spend here at the university. And we don't want you to have to do that. And so just, you know, making sure that you know what you're taking on, because sometimes some of my classmates, they would go and they would take like 21 credit hours, and I'm like, oh, whoa.
Yeah, that's too much. Yeah. That is seriously too much.
Yeah, and just doing all these things, and just know what you're biting off and how much you can chew, because it does get to be a lot, especially with projects and stuff and things like that. And but yeah, and also, like as Yuan said, networking and, you know, joining those clubs, because when you go to work for Lockheed Martin or Bell Helicopter, they're not going to be like, okay, well, you know, here's a problem, solely differential equation problem. No, everything's like jumbled together. And so you really, you know, kind of walk the walk and talk the talk. And so in the classes, everything's like, you know, conceptual. You understand, like you take like a fluids class or a differential equation, and everything's like all pretty and it's like differential equation related, but that's not how the real world works. Everything's jumbled together. Everything's like, there's always those hard problems at the end of the chapter. Life is like those hard problems. They'll never be easy. And so just, you know, being able to apply your degree and things like that, because I've had classmates who strictly, they would go to class, they would get all A's, then they would go back to their dorm. And it's just, sometimes like they would struggle because they had difficulty, like, you know, being able to relate what they learned in the classroom to the real world. Right. Versus I have, you know, classmates who went to class, struggled, didn't get that A, maybe got a B or a C, but they were a part of like an organization. So they knew like, hey, okay, you know, this is how this works in the real world. And so it's sometimes things like that. And so just having that world experience, I think, helps a lot.
Right. I think there's two things that I'm getting out of both of your conversations. So one thing that Yuan said was how unfun it was watching these 80-minute videos all at once before the midterm. So watching these academic videos is so different than binge watching like your favorite show, right? It's totally different. So when you're listening to a lecture, you really do have to pay attention and listen. You know, when you're binge watching your favorite show, you can be like eating dinner or having a conversation with a friend and it doesn't make any difference. It's not the same. So keep that in mind. And then the other thing is the practical experience. As you both said, you know, you learn the theories and you learn the math of something, but until you actually create something with your hands, like you build a rocket, you put fuel in it, you take it out to the field and you shoot it and you see how far it goes or if it even leaves the ground. And then you go back to the drawing board and you figure it all out again, right? The other thing that I heard both of you say, so 3 things instead of 2, was that practical experience of being in a club or joining an organization, working with all of your knowledge in your head to throw it all together really is the first indicator of teamwork, right? When you go into an office setting or you go into a research position or an internship position, you know, you're not just going to need to know one thing, you're going to need to know a whole lot of things, and you're also going to need to know how to work together with other people to complete a project or something. So I think that was super helpful. You did kind of talk about all the extracurriculars. So let's kind of steer it in a different way. If I was a engineering student and if I was interested in finding out about an internship, how would I do that? What kinds of things would I need to know about? How do I prepare myself? So Ishrat, let's start with you, and then Yuan, we'll move over to you.
Yeah, so I was always very conscientious about my grades, and so I made like a spreadsheet for myself, and I also, on my degree plan, I would always write like the grade that I got, and I would calculate my engineering GPA, cumulative GPA, and sometimes they want like your math GPA, and I would keep those in mind. And also we have this department in the College of Engineering called Engineering Student Services, and there is very, very nice. It's located on the 2nd floor of Netterman Hall, room 244, I believe. There is a very nice lady there named Mrs. Carol Coleman, and she does a lot of the jobs and the internships, and she's essentially the coordinator for that. And so I emailed her. I'm like, hey, you know, this is my major. This is what I'm interested in. And so she would look at like, you know, the different types of internships that she had, and she would try to like connect me with one that would suit me the best. And also she helps facilitate a job fair, but strictly for engineers, both in the fall and the spring. And so she different employers from the DFW area, like Bell, Lockheed, I think Simmons was there. I'm trying to think, Raytheon. And so she helps facilitate a lot of that. And so there's also, besides that, there's a website called Handshake, and you can put your profile up there. You can put your grades, your background and things. And so it'll also help you match to different internships and jobs. And so that's how I did it. And also I knew people who were in industry, and I would ask them, hey, you know, I'm interested in this. Does your company that you work for offer any internships or anything like that? And so they would, you know, because the power of networking for an engineer is very strong.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, I think it's important that when you come to campus, your first semester, you go to the big career center over in the UC, or you make sure that you are on Miss Coleman's list, because you can start finding out more about the types of internships that are available, the types of companies who are looking for UTA students, the types of skills that they're looking for. And the other thing that both of these offices provide is resume writing workshops, so that when you do go to the job fair, you have a very nice looking resume with all the pertinent information on it. Interview skills, how to dress for an interview, all those kinds of things. What kind of questions to ask an employer or someone who will sponsor you for an internship. So these are all really important things to keep in mind. So Yuan, you want to tell us a little bit about what you think about best way to find internships?
Actually, I agree with Israel on all of her tips she gives on the going to engineering student services. Well, besides in addition that is Miss Kara Coleman and the career fairs we have. And actually, this fall we're about to have a career fair about next month, October 14th. It's a engineering career fair, and it's all virtual online. In addition to engineering career fairs, we also have all major job fairs every semester, and we have engineering companies coming to those as well. And like how it's right, it include handshake. And because even if you don't apply, email Miss Kara Coleman, you will still get some recommendations on the internships you may do, and they get sent to your email inboxes automatically. And another source I find some of my peers are using to get internships is our department. Actually, it depends on the professor. Actually, there's a lot of professionals out there in the industry who still communicates with our professors, and when they want to hire upcoming intern, whether it's a grad student, undergrad students, they will send an email to our professor, and our professor will send out emails in the department and telling people that, hey, there's this position for who maybe it's a water resource engineer, structural, and please can you send me your resume. So in addition to Career Development Center and our career fairs, we also have professors in the department. They also send out information about internships and full-time jobs as well.
That's awesome. That's great. And so students have this opportunity to look for internships. Students also have the opportunity to do research. So if I'm an engineering student, what's the best way for me to find out about what kind of research is being done and whether or not I can be involved in the research that's being done? So Yuan, let's start with you, and then we'll bounce back to Ishrat.
So like I said before, research is since research is really easy to get, not easy, really easy, but it is easy to get here on UTS undergrad. Since we're a Carnegie R1 research institution, that means we're getting a lot of funds for research. And what this means for us undergrads is that we have a lot of opportunity to get involved with faculty research. And you can do this by emailing professors or going to their office hours, and you usually host it on Teams right now. But if you don't have any faculty member you can connect to, you can also apply for the undergraduate research program. I think I know this is available in the Honors College, but I think in addition you can find that on the UROP website of UTA, where you submit an application that includes your interest and what kind of research you want to do, like what's your year right now or your freshman sophomore year, and they will automatically find you a faculty who is trying to take an undergraduate student for their research team right now. And it's also a great thing to put on a resume too, because they, once you get to that program, they also give you I think it's a scholarship or fund, I don't know what you call it, for a whole semester or a whole year, just to fund that research, that thesis you're working on. And if you just communicate with the faculty by yourself, you usually don't get that part. It's more like a scholarship that's rewarded to you if you get in that program, which is very nice.
It is, because if you get one of those researches opportunities with funding, right, you're going to need some kind of funding to be able to buy the supplies to build whatever it is you want to build, or to test whatever it is you want to test, right? Those kinds of things cost a little bit of money, and it's nice that the university is able to support students in their research endeavors, which I think is pretty cool. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Last week you were telling us about the research project you were doing on the bridge, right? Yeah. Would you explain that in case there's some new people in the audience?
Oh yeah. So the project one of the biggest projects that we're working on in our lab is the non-destructive sensor that we're using, which is the sensor is built by ourselves. Everything is built by ourselves. We bought the material and we built it, and we put it on this little trailer, and we tow it on a pickup truck every time we go out. And just this last Tuesday, when we went out to this bridge north of Fort Worth, and we get to test this newly built bridge by TxDOT. And so we tow on the truck and drove it across the bridge for like 6-7 times in the span of 2 hours. And we're still evaluating. Well, we pretty much did all the post-processing and got the results. All the PhD students did it, but we're still waiting to give a full report, have a full conference call with TxDOT so we can tell them what's the bridge looking like. Are there any defects? And so far as I see, I don't really see any major defects, because in addition to that, we are also using a small piece of equipment called Mira. It's a more precise equipment that does non-destructive testing by using ultrasonic waves, and I'm the one who managed that in the lab. But yeah, in addition to that, I know this is a lot, sorry. So this project is funded by TxDOT. We just got this like $250,000 grant like about last fall from TxDOT, and that's how I went from volunteering in the lab to getting paid in the lab. So that's really great. And hopefully we're getting more money since they're seeing us doing way better than before. And one of the biggest advantages of our evaluation method in comparison to traditional methods is that traditional methods, we usually take about a whole day or half a day to finish the evaluation process, where we only take about 2 to 3 hours, including setting everything up. That's all the time we need to evaluate a whole bridge.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's very cool. So Ishrat, can you tell me a little bit about research, finding research, doing research, and what kind of research you've been able to do?
Yeah, for sure. I agree with a lot of what Yuan said. Personally contacting like the professors and reading up on like their research on the things they do, that really helps because it shows that you're motivated. And yeah, initially I did, for my biology degree, I did research with Daphnia, and like my professor essentially allowed me to clean everything in the lab. That was like my first job. And then when we built up the trust more, I was able to do a project of my own, and I was able to base my honors biology degree off of that. And then yeah, the engineering research that I've done, similar process, found the professors that I really liked what they were doing, sent them an email, said, hey, I read some of your papers, I'm interested, I think I can offer this. And, I just had a conversation with them. And yeah, just that's how we did it. And so the current research that I'm doing involves drug delivery systems and designing them, and seeing how to better deliver these things to like cancer cells.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. Good luck with that, because I now understand what you're talking about. So I appreciate that. A couple more questions, and this one kind of has to do with research and internships. What are the engineering job opportunities near or within DFW? Are there some? And if so, what kinds that you're aware of are available? So Ishrat, let's start with you.
Well, where do you want to work? Healthcare, airplanes. There's just so much, because we have Amazon, we have Bell, we have Lockheed, there's Raytheon, there's TI. There's just so many different companies that will be hiring. You can get like, for every major that we have on all the 11 majors, you can easily find a job within, I want to say, 50 miles of UTA. Because they're just
agree. Yeah. Because don't forget the airport. The airport hires a lot of people, and a lot of those people are engineers.
Exactly. And so just DFW is such a big hub, and there's just so many opportunities here because so many big companies are here. And I believe Tesla is next year opening up a big factory in Fort Worth. And so you just have so many choices. Like one of my friends got like a CSE degree, and she now works for Neiman Marcus in downtown Dallas. And,
nice.
I never thought Neiman Marcus would need a computer science engineer, but they do, because who maintains the website? And so it's just the Dallas area just offers so much. And I think that's one thing that we offer to our students that other universities can't, is our location. And so a lot of my friends, they actually interned at like either Lockheed or Bell, and they ended up getting jobs there after they graduated.
Yeah.
And we're in a really great spot. And I think from here, you have the ability to go work for some really, really big, cool companies.
Right. Or even really small, cool companies, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be big or anything.
There's L3 Communications in Arlington. There's a lot. And also, I think UTA also helps give you like the opportunity if you want to start your own business. I think, UTA does a really good job. And in recent years, because to be honest, I don't have the entrepreneurial spirit, but a couple of my friends do. And so, they took some business classes, and then the engineering department started offering some, and then there were like competitions like the Dean's Challenge. And I think, that really helps like an engineer see, okay, well, I can use my engineering to make my own company. And so I've had two friends who've gone on to like start their own companies, and they've been pretty successful. And a lot of it will have to do with like, the networking opportunities and like the opportunities they were given at UTA, and also the location, like location wise.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's great. So, Yuan, do you have anything to add to that about job opportunities?
No, actually, I think Ishrak pretty cover much everything. Like literally, if you're here at UTA, you have the whole DFW area around you. Like it's just anything, any job you can want. Like I mean, CSE majors go into Chase, State Farm, Allstate, and I know who civil engineering majors go into like American Airlines to work on hangars.
Mm-hmm.
It's just pretty much just be imaginative, basically, when it comes to finding jobs around here.
And I think that's really cool. I want to kind of switch gears a little bit. So, we've talked a lot about internships and research, and like the job prospects afterwards. Is it necessary to have a master's degree in engineering to be a successful engineer? Yuan, you want to start?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Yeah. Is it necessary to have a master's degree to be successful in engineering?
Okay, that question is very open-ended. I would say like it really depends on the path you're trying to take. Are you just trying to get an engineering degree, a bachelor's engineering degree, and go out in the workforce, or are you trying to, if you feel like research and you would like to stay in the research place in the basically stay in a university and do more research? And if you just want to go out to the workforce, then usually what most people do is they get a bachelor's degree, they'll go out and work, and maybe in a few years they'll come back for the master's.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times people don't really come back because, well, according to a lot of professionals out there, is that once you start working, well, you don't really want to go back to school anymore. And it's really hard to go back to a master's degree because you do have to review all the things you learn in the undergrad level. A lot of the foundation courses you learn, like calculus, physics, just basic, all those classes you do have to review. But it's always good to have a master's degree even in the professional level, is because that I know for civil engineering is that we not only we need a bachelor's degree, we also need professional licenses like the fundamental engineering, the FE license. In addition to that, the PE license. We all need that. And doing a master's is also beneficial because it adds 1 year on to your PE experience. Basically, you need about 5 years to get your PE, and you should have to work 5 years. But if you're doing a master's, that counts as the time towards your PE. Yeah. And also in addition, if you're taking more courses in your master's level, that means you can basically do more things at your job, at your field, and you get to advance up, or even have a higher startup salary, higher startup position, and you can work that towards up that. But usually people wouldn't go on get a PhD unless they really want to become a professor, or they just really want to work in the research area, and that eventually leads them to being a professor. But again, look for the career choices that you want to go on, look on your interests before you try to do a master's school. And there's, also it is a year, or at least like a year to 2 years in the next your whole life just for the master's degree.
Right. So, Ishrat, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think Yuan addressed it all. But yeah, I definitely agree with him. Having a PE is worth a lot in Texas, as I've been told. And two of my friends actually went to SMU Law School and got their patent attorneys now. And fact, you can't be a patent attorney unless you have an engineering background.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to say that exact same thing.
So, being a professional engineer can open a lot of doors for you in terms of career advancement. And it's all like what you want said, like, where do you want to be?
Right.
Like, for me personally, I'd like to get like an MD, PhD and do a lot of research and do like clinical correlation with it. And so for me, that's why I wanted the master's, to kind of see what kind of research I liked before, because with the PhD, after you choose your research, you're like strictly committed to it. And it's difficult to change. And so I kind of wanted to, well, what do I like? What are my interests? And so, sometimes like if you like a certain thing, then, maybe you don't need the master's, maybe just go to your PhD if that's what you want, or if you want to work in industry, then you might not need it. But I think for me, just the master's just helped me solidify more what I wanted. And I'm hoping I get paid more when I go work.
No, we always hope for things like that. Yuan, do you have anything to add to that? Or let me ask you a different question, because Ishrat kind of already answered this. Where do you see yourself in like 5 to 10 years? Like what kind of job or what kind of environment do you see yourself working in?
Where do I see myself in 5 to 10 years? And that's a hard question. I wish I know that. Okay, so well, in at least next 2 to 3 years, hopefully I'll finish my master's degree by the end of 2022.
Yep.
Because I graduated in 2021 May, and it gives me like about 3 semesters to finish my master's. So that's
2022.
2022. Thank you. 2022, and then hopefully I do find an internship between now and that time, so I can just check out more options, because the way I see it, and also as one of the things my dad told me when I came to college, is that whenever I try to find an internship or get involved in research, he told me that most important thing was besides that professional experience you get out from getting involved with these activities, is also to find out whether this particular area of your field is interesting to you, is interesting enough to you. Like right now I'm doing structural with research, and I did not know what that was before I came in there, and right now I'm gladly that I found out that I'm very interested in this area. It is interesting enough for me to wanting to go work at this specific field, no matter it's outside industry or in the research area. But also hopefully I can find a internship that's related, maybe into water, transportation, construction, or even structural, just to see if I want to see how it works, and if it's good enough, that's one more career choice for me besides structural. And hopefully I can see myself working in civil engineering in the next 5 to 10 years. Hopefully I can start from an engineering firm, or working for something like TechStot, and I can go up from there and get my PE. Hopefully by the end of the next 7 to 8 years, I can get my PE.
Nice. That sounds great. So I have one last question for both of you. So Yuan, we'll start with you. What is the coolest thing you have done in engineering at UTA?
Coolest thing I've done at UTA. Actually, honestly, I kind of want to say this job. One of the coolest things, not the coolest things, it's just that I remember I think giving presentations to like 100 to 200 people like in a whole room is pretty cool for an engineering student. But yeah, like that's one of the things I did with Kevin in a ISD in a learning center in Carroll ISD, is that when we were brought up to that stage like 10 minutes before, they told us about to presenting some topic that we was not expecting to do so right before that, and in that 10 minutes we came up basically, Kevin and I came up with this presentation, and it ended up pretty well. They came back with the feedback, told Julian we did really well, and I thought, there's a lot of things I did. Like, I did went out, test equipments, did problems, like did coding and stuff for research and all that. But I think one of the coolest things that we give that presentation. We basically prepared for that in 10 minutes, and we still did pretty well in front of like 200 parents.
That's awesome. And as Ishrat said, and I think you would agree, for the most part, engineers tend to be a little introverted. So actually getting up on a stage and doing a presentation in front of a few hundred people, including parents, would be, I think my stomach would have a whole bunch of butterflies in it, doing that. So I'm really glad that that worked out for you. What about you, Ishrat? What is the coolest thing you've done in engineering at UTA?
So I am currently taking a class called it's a lab, it's drug delivery lab. And I was like 3 weeks ago, I want to say, I made a hydrogel, it sounds very complicated and it's used a lot in drug delivery systems, but it was so simple to make and it was so easy to make. I was just like so blown away that this like drug that's so widely used and can be so complex, because we use it for a variety of different things like cancer therapy, like, antibiotics, things like that, is so simple to make, and you can literally make it in 5 minutes.
Wow. That is so cool. I mean, keep it up, because, with the world changing so quickly, we may end up with new things that we're going to have to battle and find new ways of getting those drugs inside of us, right? In the best way possible. So kudos to you. I want to spend the last couple of minutes bringing up our contact information. My contact information is up there. My email address, my telephone number. Even more important, I think, since you are all students, and I'm sure you'd much rather talk to students than to me, our engineering ambassadors do have their own email address. They check the email every single day, several times a day, and you will get an answer back to one of your questions from a current engineering student here at UTA. You can ask them anything. I think they're not shy about giving you honest answers. Ask them, what is it really like to be a student? What was your favorite class? What was your hardest class? Where did you live? How did you decide to come to UTA? All those kinds of things. So go ahead and ask them from a student's point of view. And then our ambassadors also have office hours Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, except for Friday mornings from 9 to 10 when I have them all in a meeting so we can figure out what we're doing for the next week. But you are welcome to contact the ambassadors if you want to send them an email and say, hey, I'd really like to talk to you face to face. We do everything through Teams, sometimes through Zoom, and so do take advantage of that. This is another resource for you to reach out and get answers to any of the questions you might have. And I'm just going to check the question box right now. I don't see any questions. If you do have a question, you've got like 1 more minute to type it in the box. And in the meantime, let me ask Yuan, in like 30 seconds, do you have any last minute ideas, tips on figuring out what kind of engineering to study and where to go with that?
Basically, my last tip would be try out everything you can.
You just muted yourself.
Sorry, I threw my eraser on the keyboard. But what I'm saying is, like, go out and try out every opportunity that you think is good. Don't be afraid to just try. Just go out, whether it's internships, research opportunities, competitions, clubs, involvements around the campus. Just go out and try. If you like it, yay. If you don't, I mean, you're young and there's a lot of things going on out there. So just don't be afraid and go out and try to do whatever you want.
I think that's excellent advice. Miss Ishrat, you got any closing remarks?
Yeah, do something you're passionate about, because this is a career you're gonna have for the rest of your life, so you might as well like it, And also, on the masters, UTA has a cool program. They offer like a fast track, which I think is super great. You can essentially condense your BS and masters. You can get it within 5 years, but you have to be stick to a very strict schedule. Right. So if that's something you're interested in, that's something we offer as well. I forgot to talk about it, but several of my friends have done it and they've been really happy with the results.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's great. And again, thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. We will be back next week with a new subject. I believe we're going to be talking about study skills and how best to study for all of these courses you'll be taking in engineering. So thank you all very much. Have a fabulous week and a wonderful weekend coming up. Thank you.